Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to draw soft clouds for a background in colored pencil. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. At the time of recording the intro for this video, these clouds aren't finished, but they'll be done by the end of the video. If you are supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this tutorial is available for you guys now, complete with voiceover. So make sure to head over and check that out. Now let's get on to this tutorial. So starting off, I'm using the Derwent Drawing Chinese White to block in where my white clouds are going to be, which is really easy to do because I'm working on the Fawn Stonehenge this time. This is the Stonehenge that's sold in individual sheets, not the pad of paper. It is different. The pad tends to be too smooth for my taste. And I'm using my dark gray pencil here and blocking everything in. Now notice that I am being way messier than you guys are used to seeing me work. Normally I work in tiny little circles and make sure everything blends really smoothly. Here, because of the way that drawing clouds works, you can just be lazy basically. I don't want to be scribbling all over the place, but it is totally okay to be a little bit messier, a little bit looser, as long as I've got the coverage that I need, where I'm overlapping on top of overlapping to make sure that I've got the pigment all over the paper. And I do recommend, if you're new to drawing clouds, you may want to work a bit smaller. This takes a long time to get enough layers to get this look. You can see I used a lighter gray around the white clouds up top and then switched over to the darker gray here. Now I'm using my black pencil to come through and darken it up even more. I know some people will tell you that using black paint or black pencils is terrible and you should never do it. It's fine as long as you're layering other colors over it. If you leave the black by itself, it can come out flat, but then there's times where I've done that and it made for some of my better pieces. So there's nothing wrong with using black. It just depends on what your goals are. So here I'm blending out with the Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner. Notice that the brown or the fawn of that paper really comes through when it gets wet. It gives it a very brown tone. When it dries, it's going to tone or lighten back up quite a bit. So once that dried, I'm going on top with my next layer. Now I do find with the Stonehenge, it takes a lot longer to dry when I use the odorless mineral spirits than the Fabriano Artistico does. So you want to just step away from the piece, make sure that it's dry most of the way so that you don't damage the tooth of the paper. For me, I went and played World of Warcraft for a little while and then came back to my piece once it was dry. Now, without even needing to blend, I am just going to go onto another layer right away. I need a lot of pigment on that paper for this to really blend smoothly. Now, when you're trying to blend or mix two colors together, the paint thinner is not going to do it alone. You need to overlap one color onto the next in order to really get them to blend. A lot of people think that the paint thinner alone is going to blend one color into the next, and it's not. You've got to layer your pencils to get that look. You can see I've mixed in a blue pencil on top of all of the black areas. I want to give it a very cool gray look here, so mixing that blue in will do that for me. Now I'm blending that out with the paint thinner. First I was using the taklon bristled filbert brush. I ended up switching over to a round stiff brush that is fairly damaged because of oil painting. It doesn't have any wet oil on it, but just from being a stiffer brush, it worked really well for blending with these. The main downside with that brush is that it absorbed so much paint thinner. So I blew through an intense, like seriously, a lot of paint thinner for this piece just because that brush sucks up so much. It also made my paper a lot more wet than I normally get when I use the taklon bristled brushes. So those are things to keep in mind. It sped things along quite nicely, but it definitely oversaturated the paper with the paint thinner, which wasn't an issue. It just took a lot longer to dry, which meant a whole lot more World of Warcraft for me. Now at this point, I am doing this section in two different parts. I want to get the left-hand side mostly finished so that you can really see the difference between the left and the right-hand side. So often people will only do a few layers, maybe 4, 5, 6 layers, and they'll call it done and not be sure why they're not getting the look like I do, where it looks more like a painting. And it's only because there aren't enough layers. It's not an issue of their work being wrong, it's just there aren't enough layers there. So here I've darkened everything up quite a bit, blended out again with the Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner, let it dry, and more layers. The big thing with this is just lots and lots and lots of layers. Blending that out again with paint thinner, let it dry, and now you can see I'm taking that black pencil and I'm going over a lot of the white clouds as well. I want to darken those up so that I can pull white highlights with the Derwent Drawing Chinese white on top of that. And I'm blending that out with the taklon bristled brush so that I get a softer look with the white. You can see some areas where I pushed really hard. Those areas are going to stay much brighter. The areas where I've used a lighter hand, those are going to be much darker. I get a medium cool gray with that. Blending that out. Now look at the difference in these two sides. The side on the right is where a lot of people will say it's done and not understand why theirs doesn't look as rich with a color, as much like a painting. It's just a matter of needing more layers. Now, if you're new to drawing clouds, I do recommend get a good reference photo and try to copy it pretty exactly. Here, I've done enough clouds that I can just go loose. I've got a reference photo, but I'm not copying even close to exact to what is there. But what so often happens is we get in our head that we know what a cloud looks like before you've ever drawn or painted one, and chances are when you hit that canvas, it's not going to look like a cloud. So you definitely want to get something that you can really copy and get a feel for. A friend of mine recently made a video, a great tutorial in graphite showing you the structure of a cloud and just basics of drawing a cloud. I will have a link pop up or a card pop up here. You can check that out. Really, really good information. But the nice thing with the drawing clouds is that they are very, very forgiving. You really can't mess them up too badly, because if you have a bad layer or it looks terrible, even with colored pencil, where normally I say you can't fix a lot of mistakes, here with clouds you absolutely can. Because of the way that I'm layering these, even if I have a bad layer, it doesn't matter. It's just going to give me a little bit more texture, a little bit more depth in my final layers. You can see I've darkened up a lot of those white clouds again. Blended it out with paint thinner, let it dry, and then I'm coming back in between with a lot of these dark areas. When I come back in with the dark areas, I'm not trying to darken everything up. I want variation of many, many different values of grays and whites. So here is my last day of working on that, darkening up areas even more. Now I'm taking that Derwent Drawing Chinese white, and I'm adding highlights mostly on the tops of all of my white clouds. I am adding a fair amount of pressure to that white pencil where I want the white to really show up. Blending that out, and then I'll come on top again with that Derwent white, just really brightening up those highlights. And notice that I've started to create clumps in the clouds. They're no longer these long, skinny worm shapes. They're now connected more so that I've got these large, large clumps of clouds. And that is it. Now this is not completely finished. Once I get the great horned owl in, chances are I'm going to come back in and do more touch-ups on the clouds just to balance everything out. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Again, if you were supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this tutorial is available for you guys now, complete with voiceover. If you're new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speak paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, social media tips, and art Q&A videos every Thursday, and artist vlogs every Saturday. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. All of those social media sites are linked below in the video description where you can keep up with the news, my nose work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I'm currently working on. I'll see you guys tomorrow. As some of you know, I'm a co-host for the Colored Pencil podcast with John Middick. Now, in a lot of our podcasts, John likes to give a history lesson. And what you don't realize is that without editing, these history lessons can last about 20 minutes. So I sometimes comment that I get bored and go get myself some tea. Some of you guys thought I was being mean to John, but you're only hearing 2 minutes of the history lesson. I had to listen to 20 minutes about the pound sign or the hashtag symbol, where it originated in Roman times. Tea was needed. Now, some of you had asked what kind of tea I drink during these breaks. So we are going to head into my kitchen. I'll show you exactly what my history lesson breaks are like. Okay, heading into the kitchen. There's studio assistant number 2. And the tea is just about ready. This is my absolute favorite green tea. And that is going to take 5 minutes to steep, so I can have this done and ready well before John is finished talking about the history of the pound symbol.